G'day guys, welcome to my bike shed. Bit of a request the other day was what spares do I take on the bike, and this is in the lead up to Melbourne 70.3, or sorry, Ironman Melbourne 70.3. Everyone is different, so it does depend on the bike that you've got. Also depends on the capacity that you've got for what you're taking. Also depends on the types of wheels that you've got. So I run clinchers, a little bit old school in that regard. Some people will be running tubular, which is probably a little even more old school, and tubeless is the way that a lot of bikes are going now. If you don't know the difference between those three types, being clincher, tubular or tubeless, that's definitely something worth having a chat to either your coach about or having a chat to a bike mechanic about to get an idea. To very quickly run you through it though, tubeless is the tube, so the tire that goes around that you literally ride on, and inside that is a liquid, a latex liquid. So if you get a small puncture, the pressure pushes that latex or a bit of that latex out the hole and it self-seals. You can generally run them at a much lower pressure, which depending on how low you go can actually be quicker. It's obviously a bit more comfortable as well, you're not bouncing as much. Clincher is the same in that it has a tire that clips on, it's got an open inside, but inside that we then have a tube. So that classic rubber tubing that we put in, that's a very common type to use, very easy to replace, very quick to replace the tubes in them as well. And then tubular is, imagine the tube and the inner tube and the tire all wrapped up in one. They actually get glued on, and they can be a bit more challenging. So I run clinchers. So I have my GP 5000 race tire on my bike, and then inside that I have a rubber tube. So that's pretty standard. I run that on both my front and rear, and then also I have a disc wheel as well, and I run a clincher on that, so it's all very much the same. The only thing I need to be wary of is the length of the valve. So I have 60mm race wheels, so I need quite a long race, quite a long valve, but then if I've got my disc wheel on, I need a much smaller one because I don't have that capacity to have the longer, so I've got to make sure I've got double. So the question was asked, what do I take on the bike? Again, it depends on the distance, depends what I'm doing, but I do have one of these. So I've just sort of taken the lid off. This goes in my bidon cage. So you can buy these online, fairly easy. You can get smaller ones as well. I go with this one because this is kind of my do-it-all. I'll use this in some of the longer races if I need a bit more capacity to carry stuff. But I also use this almost on a day-to-day basis. It's just sort of my go-to. I shove it in whatever bike I'm riding and I'm generally ready to go. I might need to swap out some tubes or something. But to have a look inside this is what we've got. So if I ever needed a puncture, I'm going to knock on wood because I've never had to do it during a race yet. You can see inside it's pretty well packed, and the reason I pack it down nice and tight is because I don't want any race rattling. Well, there's nothing worse than riding along and hearing something rattling. So to show you what I've got inside here, obviously you can see at the top there is a tube. So I'll take that one out. There's a tube, I'll come back to that in a moment. Little package there I'll also come back to. I've then also got, so this is for my disc wheel, so commonly referred to as a crack pipe, so that I can then actually get my air into my tube on the disc bike. I have a couple of gas canisters, so I've got 2 in there, and I put 2 in. I'll definitely carry always 1. Sometimes I'll carry 2, like if I was doing a 70.3 or an Ironman, I'll carry 2. But if I was doing an Olympic, then I'm probably just going to put the 1 in, depending on the space that I've got. Reaching a bit further, I've actually also got, there's actually a second tube in here at the moment. From memory, I last had this set up for when I was racing Townsville Worlds. So I had the disc wheel on the back and the 60mm dish on the 60mm wheel on the front. So there's another tube there. I'll show you the difference in those in a moment. Now, opening it up, I then have a little plastic bag just to keep things all neat and tidy. And inside that, I have my tyre levers. So it actually comes as a pack of 3. Which are just sort of held together like that. The reason I've borrowed this Velcro, it didn't come with it, but the reason I've got that on there again to stop that rattling and to hold things in place and make it easy to grab. And then I've got this little CO2 canister adapter. Okay, it has the ability, this one, if you take this out, So the difference, so you've got Schrader or you've got Presta valves. The Presta are the really thin ones that you commonly see on road bikes. Presta are a bit more of the bigger ones that you'd see on a car tyre, and they do appear on some bikes, not generally for a road bike though, they're usually the Presta valves. So it's got a little adapter there. The little blue bit on the end, that's actually a little on-off knob. And from memory that should be, that was all the way, yep. So I always make sure that that's turned off there. Now I'm not going to actually connect it up, but what would happen is if I actually needed to inflate my tyre out on the road, so I've replaced my tube, I would take one of these, I would screw it into here. Now if you have a look there, you can probably, it's a bit hard to see, there you go. There's a little nipple in there that will actually puncture the end of the canister. So you screw that all the way in. I won't do it all the way so we don't do it. All right. And then what we need to do is very carefully place that over the valve, and then I turn that on. That will inflate. I don't have any control over the pressure. This is really just an emergency situation. It's designed to get you from a flat tire to being able to either finish the bike or just get back to transition. If you have this turned on, when I screw this in, the air's going to go straight out. So you've always got to make sure if you have one of these that actually has an on-off valve or switch, or like this, a little knob, make sure it's always off. Some versions don't have that, you know, they're automatically off, and then when you press it on, they activate that way. So it depends on which one you've got. All right, so that's how I inflate my tires. I don't take a pump. The same thing happens if I needed to use the crack pipe. I would actually have to take this little adapter off. Again, knock on wood, haven't had to do this. That then screws into there, like so, and then I place that on my tyre and I would have that screwed in, turn it on, that would inflate for my disc. Okay, so I've got the ability to do both there. And that's why I have this one with the adapter, because if I am running a disc, I need the ability to either inflate directly onto the tyre via the Presta valve adapter, or because this is larger on the end of the crack pipe here than here, so that's a Presta valve there, this is larger, I need that adapter to be able to do that. And lastly, I'll just show you the difference. Oh, sorry, before I do that, not lastly, the other bit that I actually have in mine, I have another little plastic bag. In there I have two valve extenders. They're quite large, I think they're about 80 mil from memory. The idea I have with those is more for an emergency situation. So let's say I had a puncture and I wasn't able to use the right right inner tube for, say, my front tyre, which I have 60 mil space on. So for that one, for example, here's the tube that I would use for my front wheel, or my race wheel that's not my disc, my rear race wheel. That's got quite a large valve valve on it, so that will actually reach through. But let's say I didn't have access to that, I'd already used it, or something had happened, you know, on to my next one, and the one that I then have to go and use is then, say, the smaller one that I would use for my disc wheel. If I open this one up, you'll see that this one is more of a standard size, so it's a much smaller one. If I compare the two together, there they are there. Okay, bit of a difference. So if I had to use this on my front, it's not going to reach through, so I'm going to have no way of actually attaching or inflating it. All right, so what I would do is you make sure your little valve is undone, like so it'll actually work. And then what I can do is I can actually, what I can actually do is I can actually pop this over the top and screw it on. Sorry, it's a bit tight. And then you have it screwed on like that, and it actually just extends a bit ugly there, but that's, yeah, it takes a bit of time, but you get it on there, and then you've got an extension, okay? Just as an emergency situation. The only other bit that I have in there, just as a bit of a backup, is actually just a little, what do you call them? A little valve spanner, I think you call them. All right, they just literally go over the top of these. You've got the ability to either undo or do them up. Only reason I keep it is just in case. I've never had to use it, but it's there just in case I'm having an issue. So, you know, got cold fingers or whatever, and let's say I use the tube and it's got a loose valve, I need to better tighten that up. But it just sits in there. It doesn't take up too much room. So that fits on the bottom, in one of my drink bidons. If I just bring the camera around a little bit, sorry for the sun glare. There's my race bike, and if I just adjust it a little bit, so you can see I've got my disc on the back. So I would put my tube, my spares. My spares would actually go in there, like so. Haven't got the lid on it, but that's where it would go. I've then got the ability to put a drink bottle up the back. I don't tend to put this one at the back because it sits too high. Otherwise, it can get in the way. So I tend to put it down there, keep it out of the way. And then just in front of that one, I've got another drink bin with, so I have the 2 bottles on there. So one at the back, then I've got one just in front of this one here, okay? Which you'll see there. So pop that there, okay? I hope that answers the questions in terms of it. Oh, the other bit that I have is on that rear seat mounted one, there's actually the space. There's a gap that I can actually put in with some Velcro straps. I can actually put another tube in there if I wanted to. I tend to not only take the 2, but hope that helps. All right, cheers.